Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
Oh boy, do you hear the words that you are telling yourself? Do you hear the negative self-talk? Are you aware of how you sometimes treat yourself like crap, sister? Now, this came to me today when I was in spin class, and I could hear myself start to go there. So if you think that I'm picking on you, by no means am I doing that. Everybody does it. And if there's anybody out there that says they never do it, well, I guess they never do it. No, come on. We all do it. We all do it. No judgment there, but like, come on now. Come on now. We all have those moments, right? Some of us may have the negative self-talk that it is an ongoing narrative in the back of our mind, where it is always going on. And we can take a look. It's so interesting, right? Like when I work with women that I do, you know, there's so many women that are very aware of where it came from. And, you know, almost certainly it's stuff from childhood, stuff with a parent, could be something with a partner, could be something from a marriage that they're in or not in anymore, abuse that happened. We're very aware of where it came from, which I think is you know, it's helpful, but then what, right? Then what? Because knowing where something's come from, again, although can be insightful, now it's the, well, what's next now to that, right? Are we going to choose to keep carrying those stories with us? If you had a parent, for example, that criticized you all the time and told you that you weren't enough, are you going to keep allowing them to affect you in that way? And now, you know, you're like a 42-year-old woman. Like, is that still going to go on? Because at some point, there's got to be a choice in this, right? To not let the past define who we are in this present moment. To not let the past, you know, bleed anymore into not just the present moment, but define who we become in the future. From something that happened when you're young. And listen, I know it could be something that's incredibly traumatic. It could be something you're finding hard to break. You've worked with therapists for years, nothing's really happening. Like, or you find yourself falling back into old patterns again. I recognize that you most likely have done a lot of things to like really try to shift that and like, listen, honor all of that. Honor where you've come from. This is not about beating yourself up, because your words are already doing that, right? It's the whole point of this episode. It's like, don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up now. But here's how this went down. I did a Facebook Live about this then just less than an hour ago. I'm in spin class. I've been taking spin classes about 3 months. I'm a very physically active woman. I just have all of my adult life. I've done lots of different things. And so my newest obsession is spin class. It's so super hard. Like, it's so hard. And so I'm kind of feeling after about 3 months of classes, I'm kind of at this point where I'm like, you know what? Like, I do fairly well in class. Like, I feel pretty good about it. You know, my cardio leading up to that was like in 3-minute rounds, because I box and work with a trainer. And so, you know, you train based on what it would be like normally, right? Like 3-minute rounds, 2 3-minute rounds if you were in a fight. And so that's kind of the extent of it, right? And so this was a whole new flavor. But today was a complete ass kicking. Like, the warm-up was gassing me. I remember when I used to do CrossFit, when I used to lift, I lifted for, and I'm not joking when I say this, about 32 years, from like the age of 15 until, when did we move here to Victoria? 46. Yeah, 15 to 46. What's that, 31 years then? Or was I 47? 47, yeah. So, 32 years. And I remember at times, like, really pushing myself in CrossFit world, what are called Metcons. It's short for metabolic conditioning, a Metcon workout, where you're pushing really hard and it's either going to be a lighter weight, or it's going to be in higher kind of reps, or it's going to maybe be a lower repetition and a really heavy weight. But there'd be this moment sometimes where you just push yourself so hard, like almost like, I can't even really, like a metallic taste in my mouth, almost like the taste of blood. You know, if you ever like I'm sure you've all tasted your own blood. You know, hurt yourself or something, you go to suck your finger or like whatever, right? Like, you know, that like awful kind of metallic taste. And it was like in the workout, I was like, oh man, I am in trouble today. Like, this is not good. The ass kicking has started and we're like, you know, 4 or 5 minutes in and it's a 45-minute class. Like, I'm in trouble. And so, you know, I started to go to those places like, oh my God, Karen, you suck today. And like, I started to think of the why is this happening? Well, I haven't been sleeping all that well. There's been a lot of stress going on in my life. You know, I haven't been eating as much because of the stress stuff. It could be that. I don't know if my ketones today. Like, none of it really mattered that much. It might have had some relevance in that I was like, you know, possibly impeding my performance and how I was showing up and you know, what I was able to do in the class. But I started to go to those places where I'm just like, oh my God, Karen, you're doing this for 3 months. Like, you suck today, and push yourself harder and like, come on, right? And I found myself, I caught myself in those moments where I'm just like, what am I doing? And I'm like, wait a second. And I'll tell you kind of where my head went to. And then I want to really share with you like a strategy that I think is really important. I share with some clients today on coaching calls to really help you understand that the way that you speak to yourself, you often would never talk to anybody else that way. You just wouldn't. You wouldn't with friends, clients, coworkers, spouse. You might be a little hard on spouse. You know, sometimes we tend to be a little bit harder on the people closest to us, our spouse and our kids, right? But yeah, the judgment towards ourselves can just be heavy. And so I caught myself in those moments. And I just went, wait a second. I go, Karen, you like, it's different ages. I'd say it's definitely like probably 95% women in the classes. But there's definitely some very young women there too. And I was like, you know what, Karen? You're like turning 50 in like a little bit less than 4 months. Like, there are women that are half your age here. Like, you're good kind of thing, right? And it's like, give myself grace to have an off day. I showed up. Like, to me, remember when I used to do CrossFit, I really wanted to like push it so hard and be the fastest and be the best and get on the board for the top 3 times and the top 3 lifts and all that kind of stuff. And then I got to a point after we'd had our first child, I was like, you know, I'm just happy to be here. Like, my bar was, I wouldn't say lower, but it was just different, right? Where it's like, I don't need that stuff anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm competing against myself, nobody else, and I'm just happy to be here. Like, as long as I just walk in the door and I show up, I've already won at that point. Now I'm just kind of putting in the effort for the class, like whatever I'm, you know, showing up for. And so, yeah, I went to the place of like, Karen, you're here. Like, you've had a, you know, great morning so far. You know, you're going to feel amazing after the class. Like, just, you know, give yourself some grace. Like, enough with the negative self-talk, right? Now, I've been through a lot of personal growth and like on steroids personal growth over the last about 9 weeks or so. So, you know, I'm in a very, very hyper-aware space of a lot of these things. But, you know, 9 months ago, I certainly wasn't. And what I'm aware of it is this. It's like, imagine you now a lot of you who are moms who listen to this, right? If you're not, then maybe you're an auntie, you've got friends that have children. You can kind of get the gist of it, right? But imagine if you saw your child that was beating up himself or herself with what they were saying with their words. And you might just kind of listen to them. Maybe they're crying and they're upset. Somebody hurt their feelings. Maybe they were bullied, you know, whatever it is. And you know that often, as much as it's hard to see your child in that place, you often know it's like they just got to get it out, right? They just got to like have the tears. They just got to get mad. They just got to. And there are times where we're just like, oh my God, like we're going to school or it's not time. But I would say for the most part, right, when we're a little bit more clear, we kind of realize and recognize that they just need to get those feelings out. And then once they kind of allow that to happen, right, then there's a clearing. Then there's an opening for us to say, listen, sweetheart, I love you. You are not an idiot. It is not okay that those kids said those things to you. And I love you. And you're incredible. And like, you know, you give them the space to have that conversation or cry it out or yell it out or whatever it is. Because, you know, that's part of it. And you know that if you go and you try to like fix and stop that stuff, it's like trying to like like cutting off a fever, when we know that a fever needs to kind of go, it needs to spike at that natural course rate, and then it will naturally drop down. If we stop it in the middle, you create a lot of these super bugs. You never really allow your body to heal. Like, you know, you gotta, same thing, emotions is no different. You gotta let them just kind of like go through that stuff. And then you're able to take them in, right? The same way with a child having a temper tantrum when they're little, right? You can take a look at it and be just like, oh, dude, like, again, like, really? Like, we got to get to school. Mommy's got to get to work. We got to do this thing. And then there are those, we'll just call them good, better, let's just say more aware parenting moments when you're able to kind of really see, you know what I'm talking about? Where you're just like, oh man, he's really tired. Oh, he's really hungry. You know, he got up early, probably didn't have a good night's sleep. You know, there's this thing going on at school. Like, you kind of understand that the tantrum isn't about what's going on, but that what they really need, the same thing, they just need to get it out, right? And then you can go and you can comfort them, and then there'll be that opening, right, to give them a hug and give them a kiss and hold them and let them know that they're okay. Now, I want you to consider that you are that child that's, you know, sharing those tough feelings. You are that child that's having that tantrum and feels so out of fucking control. And the same way that you would allow your child to move through that, let them get it out. Let them cry it out, scream it out, whatever it is, right? As long as they're not hurting themselves or other people. Let them go through all that, right? Feel it. And then you can come in to really give them some compassion and hold them. So the next time that you go to that negative self-talk and you beat yourself up and stuff, I want you to really like just see yourself as that like young child, as that little girl. That really behind the negative self-talk is like, I'm scared. I feel like I'm not enough. Nobody sees me, right? Do I even matter? Like, we all know it's all these things underneath that, right? And just like give yourself some grace. Like, seriously, cut yourself some slack with all these things that you're demanding of yourself and that you think that you're not doing enough. And my God, you're the cheerleader for probably a lot of people in your life. What makes you think that you don't deserve to be a cheerleader for yourself? So here's your more tip for today. I want you to open up your journal, and at the top you're going to write, I know I'm doing my best because, and start writing. Really. This is the beginning of you learning to be a little gentle, a little softer on yourself, a little bit more compassionate. And listen, I know this can be tough for you. Like, I literally used to come from a standpoint where like, well, if I'm not tough on, like, people would say to me, Karen, you're so tough on yourself. And I'm like I seriously, like, I never saw it because I'm not this perfectionist thing. Things don't have to be a certain, like, there was none of that I was aware of, at least. Like, it wasn't that. And so I didn't really understand. It didn't really fit with me until I actually saw it. And I went, oh, yeah, you're right. I had, past tense, had this belief that, well, if I'm not tough on me, then who's going to be? Like, I need to be the one that's like pushing myself to get the things I want. And there's nothing wrong with having that drive and being really passionate and stuff, but at the sake of beating yourself up, at the sake of saying that you suck, you know, that's like being like a coach, like a sports coach that feels like to motivate, they got to put their athletes down. Like, that's not cool. You don't, you know, I do not believe in this, you know, the kind of the military thing, right? Like, tear them down so you can build them back up again. Because that's what you're doing, right? When you're doing that. So at the top of your journal, I'm doing my best today. We'll add that. I'm doing my best today because, and I want you to be gentle on yourself. Don't lie, but like, just be gentle on yourself and write and see what insight comes up. Okay, sister, 2 things I want to hit you with. Number 1, if you're not in, by the way, I have a new Facebook community that I started about 8 weeks ago called The Journey to Feminine, where we talk about a lot of these types of things. You know, it's like an expansion of the podcast. So it's a free community. I want you to go into Facebook, go to the search bar and type in The Journey to Feminine, The Journey to Feminine, and request to be added to the group. So we're 200 women in there right now. And number 2, the Women Wanting More 21-Day Challenge that started with the group of, actually it was supposed to be 21. One more woman kind of squeaked in at the end. So 22 women. We began this week as I record the podcast here right now. And I'm going to be running another one coming up. I don't know the exact date, but I have a lot of women that are like, oh my God, I missed out. I want to get on the next 21-day challenge, right? When we really, at the end of the 21 days, we will have gone through all these layers so you can have some clarity on what you really want within your life. Go through the objections. What are the stories? All this, the negative self-talk, the mindset piece, right? So at the end of that, you will have a plan that you can now plug into the rest of the year to create the life that you truly want. And yes, in 21 days, it's a fast and furious, like action-packed 21 days. But here's the deal. So I'm now creating a wait list for the next 21-day challenge. If you wanted to be added to the list, I want you to email me, drkarenosburn@gmail.com, gmail.com. So drkarenosburn@gmail.com. And just write in the subject line, please add me to the list. Okay, please add me to the list. I will add to the 21-day challenge. It most likely is going to be beginning around the end of February 2019. So, yes. So email me, and then I will get in touch with you when the dates are set up for the next challenge. And what this means is if you were on the list, you get early bird registration. Okay, so the women that were on the list for this one, they were able to get in on the first day before it was released to anybody else. And just know there's 4,000 plus women that are in the Women Wanting More community, like in the newsletter. There's about 3,000 women that listen to the podcast every single day. A lot of women that follow me on Facebook and on Instagram and stuff. So it's a really big growing community. So like I'm anticipating this with this next 21-day challenge, because we filled all the spots plus one for the challenge that's happening right now. But I'm feeling that for this next 21-day challenge, and with the momentum and then the women that will be sharing a lot of stuff, like it's probably going to fill up in about 48 hours, like really, really fast. So you want the list, email me, drkarenosburn@gmail.com. In the subject line, say, please add me to the list. So I will talk the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away on giving yourself some grace, compassion, and love every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.